What is up, mortals? Welcome to Season 2 Part 5 of What If Deku Had Super Speed. Now with that out of the way, let's get into the story. Who are you two again? Gran Torino asked Izuku and Katsuki. What do you mean, you old geezer? Katsuki demanded angrily. Who are you? Gran Torino asked them a second time as he continued to pretend to be senile. Izuku was left speechless. In anger, he clenched his fist under his desk so no one would notice. Despite the man's ability to remember events in the past, he always seemed to forget a person's name. As the green-haired boy pondered this oddity, he remembered the old man asking All Might the same. Suddenly, Izuku thought he understood what the teacher wanted. Hi, my name is Borealis, and this is my friend Ground Zero, sir, the emerald-eyed boy said with more confidence than he felt. Despite his confident voice and the smile on his face, Izuku was starting to sweat nervously. The only sound that could be heard was Gran Torino's cane tapping the floor as he and Aizawa continued walking farther into the room. The white-haired man turned swiftly and began walking back toward the door. Once he reached the door, he stopped and addressed the class. Meet me at Training Gym Gamma. I can't believe Toshinori left me such wet blankets to train, Gran Torino said with a surprising amount of intensity. I expect everyone to be in their hero costumes. In the stillness of the room, the sound of his cane seemed extremely loud as the retired pro-hero left the room. Following Gran Torino's exit, Aizawa pointed to the back of the classroom. When the class turned in that direction, they saw their hero costume suitcases on a table. Borealis quickly went over to the table and grabbed his suitcase. The case felt lighter in his hands than usual. Without thinking, he raced out the door to change into his new hero costume, leaving his school bag behind. Without meaning to, his quirk activated, and Izuku ended up sprinting to his dorm room. Borealis unlocked his room door and entered. The walls of the room were covered with hero posters of All Might and a clock. Both heroes had inspired Izuku. Izuku put the suitcase on his bed and opened it. Resting on top of his new suit was a letter from the support department. The green-haired boy moved the letter to the side and began to examine the suit. The first thing he noticed was the vest. The vest had pockets on the front for his hero supplies. When Izuku turned the vest over, he saw a pocket that took up the entire back panel. Tucked inside the pocket was an empty hydration pack. It took him several minutes to dress because he spent time marveling at how his suit had been modified. Then, in his rush to get to Gym Gamma, the green-haired hero student ran out of his room without even closing the door. Izuku's classmates were just entering the dorm as he came racing out. Despite how tense Borealis felt because his quirk was activated, his mind felt clearer than it had in a long time. As the green-haired boy arrived at the gym, he saw Gran Torino stick out his cane. Izuku was unable to react in time and tripped over it. As he got up, he saw the smile on teacher's face. Your mind was too cluttered. If you ever want to talk about All Might, you can always come to me, Gran Torino muttered as he watched Borealis. A cluttered mind is a hero's greatest weakness. Sir, do you know why All Might wanted Ida to intern at Sir Night-Eye's hero agency? Borealis said with a confused look on his face. Did Toshinori ever discuss his quirk with you? Gran Torino asked. No, but he did mention that he wanted Kaken, Ada, Uraraka, and myself for training each day after school. All Might passed away before the training began, Izuku said in confusion as he recalled his past conversations with All Might. It's a shame that the smallest detail can make the difference between life and death, Gran Torino grumbled in a sorrow-filled voice. If Ida feels comfortable with you three knowing the reason, then I will tell the three of you. Toshinori failed the boy. The clutter in his mind was worse than the clutter in yours. A series of explosions could be heard moving in their direction. The green-haired boy took a step back as he watched the retired hero tap his cane on the ground impatiently. A spiky blonde-haired boy was using his explosions to push himself through the air. With two final explosions, the atomic blonde reached them. Oi nerd, next time, don't forget to take your school bag. Also, close and lock your room door. I had to ask Aizawa to lock it for you. Ground Zero growled in frustration as he noticed the changes to his friend's costume. The vest is new. Did they also change something about your shoes? Sorry, KK Kaken. I was so excited to see if they made the changes to my hero costume that I forgot my bag. I asked if they could make my shoes out of a ceramic material. Borealis excitedly stuttered. And they did it. They made my shoes out of a ceramic material instead of iron. And they added a hydration pack in the back of the vest so I can stay hydrated. Who are you? Gran Torino asked Katsuki as the retired hero pretended to be forgetful. It's Ground Zero. And don't forget it this time, the blonde-haired boy said petulantly. Good, now let's see if your classmates can also figure out why I'm so forgetful, Gran Torino said with a smirk, then almost as an afterthought he added, you're too tense and that tension is preventing you from using your quirk to its fullest. Uraraka and Ida were the next pair of students to arrive. Despite the smile on the blue-haired boy's face, it was clear that he doubted himself. Although the brown-haired girl was bouncing up and down with excitement, there was a surprising amount of determination in her voice as she spoke with her classmate. As the pair reached the white-haired man, Ada said, "Excuse me, sir, I have a question." Anticipating the question, Gran Torino interrupted the boy and said, "Quit plaguing your mind with false doubts. There is a lot more to saving people than merely rescuing them. Don't be deceived. You stopped All for One as much as All Might did." "How, sir?" "All I did was evacuate citizens as All Might requested," Ada said, sounding incredibly confused. "You saved people," which allowed Toshinori to focus on the fight, Gran Torino said dismissively. It took 10 minutes for the rest of the class to arrive at the plain-looking building. The retired hero led everyone inside. Most of the interior of the building consisted of mountains made of concrete. The pro-hero Cementos formed the mountains through his cement quirk. The old teacher sent everyone except for Katsuki, Izuku, Uraraka, and Ida to the training area. "Would you like your friends to know why All Might wanted you to train at Sir Night-Eye Hero Agency?" Gran Torino asked Ida in a straightforward manner. "Yes, sir, I see no reason why they shouldn't know," the blue-haired boy responded. "Very well then. Follow me and I will explain," Gran Torino said in a matter-of-fact voice as he entered the training facility. The four friends followed the older man to a secluded part of the training area. As the four of them entered a cul-de-sac formed by 3 mountains preventing their classmates from seeing them, their teacher activated his quirk and flew above the peak of the mountain that was blocking their path. Gran Torino then propelled 4 large concrete boulders at his 4 students. Ground Zero simply blasted the boulder coming towards him to pieces. Borealis activated his quirk and started to run up the mountain on his left. Uraraka simply used her quirk to make herself float above the boulder. When Ada activated his quirk, his body emitted white lightning, and the flames coming from the exhaust pipes on his legs were blue instead of their usual orange color, as if he had activated Recipro Burst. The burst of speed was so great that the blue-haired boy ran straight into the mountain in front of him. The white-haired man watched the scene unfold with an unreadable expression. He waited until the boulders came to a standstill before returning to the students. "Ada, you should focus on activating your original quirk when an unexpected situation presents itself," Gran Torino grumbled in disappointment. "Toshinori, if only you had more time. Maybe then your students wouldn't be zygotes." "What do you mean, original quirk, sir?" the blue-haired boy asked, sounding very confused. "Didn't Toshinori ask you to consume some of his DNA?" "Say a strand of hair?" the white-haired man asked. "Yes, he had me consume a strand of his hair. I failed to see the significance of it," Ada said, still confused. "By having you swallow one of his hairs, Toshinori passed his quirk to you," the white-haired patiently explained. "Before we get back into the story, I would like to say that we've got a second channel called Anime Deep Dive. Anime Deep Dive goes over the hard facts of the anime presented. Now, in case you guys didn't know, we have a third channel called We The Celestial Naruto What If. We The Celestial Naruto What If mainly focuses on our Naruto What If series. If you are interested in content like this, please go check the description below or click the eye icon in the top right corner. Now with that out of the way, let's get back into the story. A transferable quirk. I knew that people theorized that such a thing was possible, but I didn't think one existed. Izuku muttered in shock as he started to analyze the implications of what was said. "You just had to get Borealis started, didn't you? Now we'll have to wait for him to stop muttering," Katsuki grumbled in annoyance. "Midoriya, the old man is clearly senile. A quirk can't be transferred," Ida said in disbelief. "This must be my quirk evolving. Something like this hasn't been discovered yet," Midoriya continued muttering to himself, "but Ida's quirk has been acting pretty strangely. Normally Ida's quirk only releases blue flames when he uses Recipro Burst, not when he uses his regular quirk. Is Deku alright? Why is he muttering like that?" Uraraka asked out of concern for her friend. "Borealis loves to take notes on various quirks and their abilities. We'd be here all day if he had his notebook." The atomic blonde grumbled as he shook his head in amazement at Uraraka not knowing this about her friend. "How many notebooks has he filled up?" the retired pro-hero asked suddenly, very interested in the subject being discussed. "That seems like an incredibly risky thing to do. Villains would kill to get their hands on something like that. Last time I checked, he was working on his 13th notebook," the blonde-haired boy growled. "I believe he calls them his hero analysis for the future. I don't know why he needs them when he remembers that stuff anyway." "Borealis, how many notebooks do you have on quirks?" Gran Torino asked again, concerned about the existence of the notebooks. Hearing his friend's last comment about the notebooks, Izuku remembered where he was and said, "Kaken, I already told you I don't take notes on just quirks. It's meant to help me out in the future. But this is one ability I won't include in my notes because if it got into the wrong hands it would be a disaster." "What notebook number are you currently working on?" the white-haired hero asked in annoyance as he smacked Izuku's leg with his cane. "Oh, sorry, I got distracted. If you're asking about how many notebooks I have, I'm currently on the 14th notebook," the green-haired boy said, confused by the sudden questioning. Sir, Midoriya would never try to hurt us. I don't see the big deal in him taking notes, Ada said, looking confused. Four Eyes Sensei isn't concerned with Borealis having the information. He's concerned about it getting stolen. Katsuki grumbled in frustration that his friend was missing the point. You need to see how detailed those notes are. If Borealis hadn't agreed to store the notebooks in a safe in his room, I probably would have blown up the notebooks that contained information about my quirk. Hey, Deku, what kind of information do you have on my quirk? Uraraka curiously asked. A description of what your quirk does, its upper limits, conditions for activation, and what happens if you overuse it. Why is there something wrong with that? Izuku replied nervously. Borealis, your desire to improve is commendable, but you have to make sure that those notebooks don't get stolen, the elder hero said sternly. I suggest moving the safe with those books to a more secure location. I strongly suggest that you do not mention who the current user of One for All is. Yes, sir, Izuku said with enthusiasm. Izuku had intended to use the information in the notebooks to help save people once he became a pro hero, but as he considered the conversation with his teacher and the comments made by Katsuki, began to understand just how dangerous the information in the notebooks could be if they fell into the wrong hands. The emerald-eyed boy made a mental note to ask All Might's teacher for advice on how to secure the information in the notebooks as soon as he could speak with him privately. Realizing that he had made his point, Gran Torino resumed the training. He asked Ada to use 5% of One for All. The boy's first attempt ended in failure because instead of activating One for All, he accidentally activated his original quirk and sent himself racing into the mountain in front of him. Ada's second attempt was an even bigger failure. As the blue-haired boy attempted to activate One for All at 5%, he had the sudden thought of not being good enough to be All Might's successor, causing him to accidentally activate Recipro Burst at the same time. Making matters worse was that this loss of focus caused him to increase the power of One for All to 15%. The blue-haired boy slammed into the mountain with enough force to leave a large crater in the mountain. The flames coming out of the exhaust were white in color. The white flames matched the white-colored lightning that was being emitted from his body. Before he could berate himself for failing to do what his teacher asked, Gran Torino walked over to Ada and using his cane whacked the boy soundly in his right shin. That is enough for now. Let us rejoin the class before our absence is noticed. As they were walking back, Gran Torino continued speaking. All of you must stop cluttering your minds with useless thoughts. If you doubt your own worth, then you need to train harder. Doubt poisons one's mind and leads to seeking acknowledgement from others. It's just that I've been feeling useless lately, Ada muttered as tears started to roll down his face. I wasn't strong enough to help out in the fight again. Sadly, All Might wasn't strong enough either, the elder hero muttered. The only useful thing about the past is for us to learn from it. Does it ever get easier to deal with the loss of someone you knew? The blue-haired boy asked, sounding sad. No, losing someone and dealing with the loss isn't easy, the white-haired teacher said quietly. Class 1 ended up spending the entire morning in the gym practicing their hero moves. After lunch, Izuku arrived at the classroom early. Aizawa was sleeping in his yellow sleeping bag beneath the windows in the classroom. The green-haired boy noticed several juice boxes were lying nearby. Borealis walked quietly to his seat. Izuku took out his notebook and began to write down the information he had learned during the hero training. He started to jot information about the quirk he saw his teacher use. The green-haired boy made a note in his journal that he needed to speak with Gran Torino about relocating his safe to a more secure location. The rest of his class started to filter into the room after they finished eating lunch. His blue-haired friend walked over to him and pointed towards the door. Understanding the meaning of the gesture, Izuku followed his friend out of the classroom. The green-haired boy noticed that his friend looked like he had seen a ghost. Thank you, Midoriya, Ida whispered as he looked around nervously. While I was changing out of my hero costume, I saw All Might standing in my room, or at least the form he had when he wasn't a hero. It probably has something to do with your quirk, Izuku said with as much confidence as he could. Do you really think this has something to do with that? Eda nervously whispered. What makes you say that? It can be transferred. We don't know if this allows the previous users to communicate with the current user, the green-haired boy muttered as he looked around to make sure no one was listening. We don't know much about the quirk. What we do know makes the quirk even more mysterious to us. For all we know, you're the first user encountering this aspect of it. But speak with Gran Torino because he might have a better idea about what's going on. Midoriya, how is it so easy for you to accept this? Eda whispered as he looked at his friend in confusion. I've spent my entire life researching quirks because I wanted to figure out why my quirk was so different from my parents, the emerald-eyed boy said with a smile. This change to your quirk was a topic that was debated in various research papers. Most agree that it would be better if this kind of quirk didn't even exist. Is it that dangerous? The blue-haired boy asked as he took a deep breath. The ability to transfer a quirk could help the quirkless. If there is a way to transfer quirks, then it means there's a way to steal them, Borealis muttered as he stared at his friend. There's no telling how common quirks like this are. Remember, according to the news, All for One stole hundreds of quirks. I see, so it's not the quirk that's the issue, it's what someone would do with that ability, the boy with glasses grumbled. Surely there's a way to prevent the quirks from being stolen. Let's head back into class, Ida, the emerald-eyed boy said politely. Even that's up for debate. We might never know. Thank you, Midoriya, the blue-haired boy said gratefully as he walked back into class. If I ever need help, I will make sure to ask you for assistance, especially if the issue is a quirk. You're welcome, the green-haired boy said as he walked into class. Despite everything, Borealis couldn't help but worry about his friend. One of his friends had just received a wonderful gift, but it also made the friend a bigger target. As Izuku was walking back to his seat, he was struck with the possibility that a quirk that could steal other quirks might have the ability to be transferred to another person. Once that he got to his seat, he started to write down some of the thoughts that had occurred to him. Midoriya, are you paying attention? Aizawa said in a monotone voice. Sorry, sir, I got distracted by hero training today, Izuku said in a panic as he snapped out of his own little whirl. You're in luck. I haven't said anything yet, the teacher said, sounding mildly annoyed. Just don't let it happen again. Yes, sir, I won't let it happen again, the green-haired boy said as he started to calm down. We were given the go-ahead to have the training camp. Use the remainder of the week to buy any supplies you might need, the black-haired teacher sourly said. We have credible evidence that someone is planning an attack on the training camp. If you see anything suspicious, report it immediately. One was left stunned. The class started to mutter to each other about the warning. Many of them were shocked that they and their school might still be in danger even after all that had happened. Seeing their confusion, the teacher tried to explain. There will be plenty of villains looking to make a name for themselves now that All for One is gone. The sleep-deprived teacher added one final warning. He added, keep in mind that being power-hungry isn't a trait unique to villains. The week passed by uneventfully. On the day before they were to leave for the training camp, the class decided to go shopping together. Despite the class hanging out, everyone was nervous and on edge. Katsuki noticed that several of his classmates kept surveying the area looking for something suspicious. The atomic blonde noticed that his green-haired friend didn't seem all that bothered by the news. Oi nerd, why aren't you nervous? The spiky blonde-haired boy growled as he wondered why his friend was so relaxed. Simple. This isn't anything new for me. I've been observing people my entire life as I studied their quirks, Izuku said in embarrassment. You might want to teach the rest of these extras how you do that, the atomic blonde grumbled. Four Eyes looks like he's looking for a fight. As soon as an opportunity presents itself, I will talk to him about it, the emerald-eyed boy muttered. Despite how nervous Class 1 felt while they were shopping, the excursion went by without any incident. Izuku pulled his blue-haired friend aside and started to teach him how to pay attention to the people in the crowd without being so obvious. The lesson ended up being a waste of time since Ida continued staring intently at anything he found remotely suspicious. On the bus to the training camp the following day, Borealis found himself on edge. He realized that although his teacher had told the class where they would be heading, he never mentioned what time they would arrive. Another thing he found odd was his teacher's smile, because he couldn't remember ever seeing his teacher smile until now. The green-haired boy looked over at his blonde-haired friend and noticed his friend was just as nervous as he was. They had been on the bus for a few hours and were ascending a mountain road when, without warning, the bus pulled to the side and came to a stop. Once the students exited the bus, they could see a forest far below. Suddenly, the ground beneath them began to move in a wave-like motion. Before anyone could react, they were thrown into the air. While they were flying through the air, they heard their teacher call out to them. Do not be afraid, and once you land, keep moving in the same direction. The camp is in that direction, Aizawa called out as he pointed at the students. Everyone in the class used their quirks to protect themselves from the fall. However, as the class descended towards the ground rose up to meet them. Once they were safely on the ground again, the ground sloped downwards and they slid down to the forest floor where they came to a stop. As the students were recovering from the ordeal they had just been through, they began to relax and chatter amongst themselves until they were silenced by the sound of something heavy hitting the ground in the forest. Thank you all for watching the video to the end. Now there are a few more things that I'd like to go over before the video ends. On behalf of We the Celestials, I'd like to thank the writer of this video and editors for this video. Their details will be in the description. If you're a voice actor, editor, or writer, or you're interested in becoming one of those, go to the Discord that is in the description of this video and hit up the head of one of those areas. We're always looking for members to join us. That's it from us for today's video. So thank you all for watching, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you're interested and hit that like button if you liked the video. Until next time, peace out mortals, have a fantastic day.